Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Crash Bandicoot 2 Cortex Strikes Back. In the last part, we beat up Tiny Tiger and reached our fourth tier of levels, and now we're in Hanging Out, which is easily one of the worst levels to get the relic in Sane Trilogy, just due to some of the level design stuff being very, oh boy, with the crash dash. Either way, this level has 93 boxes, 35 of which are in the bonus level, and the gold relic time for it is 1 minute, 3 seconds, and 82 hundredths. Now, the largest portion of the stage is, as the name would imply, hanging on the grates. And this is where the speedrun becomes annoying, because from what I recall, the crash dash doesn't work on these. So it becomes you more so just doing these as well as you can while really rushing to the more dangerous and more populated parts of the stage when you're not on these. Also, I got really risky there. And the biggest annoyance of that comes in just due to the fact that you don't get Aku-Akus, I believe, during that, in these sections of the stage. Because for some reason when I'm dashing, I have a hell of a time jumping over those guys. I don't think it was the level I was on for the speedrun the longest. I want to say that may have been Road to Nowhere, actually, in Crash 1, if not the DLC level for Crash 1. Though I was on it for some length and later on in this game, too, don't get me wrong. I'm thinking particularly of level... I think it's level 22? No, 23. That was a thing as well. Now, if there's one thing I can give this stage compared to some of the other sewer levels, is that there's no bullshit optional paths to go along in terms of, like, forks. For the most part. There's a fork, technically, but that requires a certain something. We'll get to that in a moment. However, we are just going to grab the crystal and that checkpoint and move on to the bonus. Now, I'm trying to remember, which bonus stage is this? Is this? Yes, it's this one. Admittedly, the one thing I have that's a minor complaint about Crash 2 is that remembering which bonus is which, depending on the theme of the stage you're in, can be kind of annoying. But that's only for repeat players. Whoa, that was weird. I slid off there. This one's more annoying just due to some of the time stuff that goes on it, because each one of these crates has 10 Wumpa Fruit in it. That means you're jumping on them a total of 80 times. Yeah, that's, yeah, no. I mean, technically speaking, I'm going the long way about it, because you're supposed to end with the 3 in the middle and the, just jump between the 2 layers of those, but I prefer not to do that, and I screwed up anyway! Great. Thankfully, in this game, failing in a bonus, as we've seen, just kind of sends us back out onto it, so let's just do that better. And I got a lot more Wumpa Fruit this time, actually, because I caught some of the other ones along the way. Either way, that's the bonus done, and we actually have a good amount of the boxes here. I want to say most of the boxes in this level that we haven't gotten yet are from the Nitro Detonator, which is for a few... Actually, no, it's right there, never mind. I was confusing this with one of the earlier levels, apparently, with what that was. And with that, there are only no boxes left, actually, if I'm recalling correctly. Yeah, there we are. I actually find it funny they put a door behind a door, but now that we have the crystal and the gem, we immediately want to go and take a death. Why? Aside from voice cracks, you might remember the last checkpoint, you could actually head over here. This leads to a secret path that not only has the only time in the game when you're on these mesh grates that you actually have to press the circle button to duck upwards, since you will get hit by these guys otherwise. And not only does it have a lot of extra lives for you, like, seriously, what the hell, that's a lot of extra lives. It also is a source for a certain part of the percentage that we like to get in this game, because 100% feels good. Once we walk over here, bonus warp the next. And this brings us to our second optional level in the game. Totally Fly. Not a name I'm a fan of, I admit. And fun fact, this is actually technically the last level, numerically. So let's check on in. Like with Totally Bear, it only has a gem to it, no crystal or anything. But this is an interesting level. 44 boxes, 18 of which are in its bonus. Gold relic time for Sane Trilogy of 1 minute, 2 seconds, and 8 hundredths. And this entire thing circles around these fireflies which light up the area around you. You can't see what's on the ground without them. However, each firefly flies away after a set amount of time depending on the firefly. This means this is a level you kind of have to rush. Admittedly, that's not much of an issue if you're going for the speed run because you're just running through it anyway. The biggest annoyance when it comes to the speed run there is probably honestly those nitro crates I just ran past. The big annoyance, though, comes in when we fail a jump, apparently. When we get to about the 2/3 mark, because I think it's 4 or 5 of the crates in the level itself are the locked crates we need to do a ground pound on. I guess it's more of a belly flop. And we have to do something very special with those when we get to them. Or at least in terms of how the order of how we take on things, more accurately. Give them this, though. Plentiful checkpoints. This level is also a rarity in that the gimmick of the level actually bleeds into the bonus as well. Not every level in the game does this. Which is just kind of odd. But I think out of the main platformers, this might be the only secret level in the series that has a bonus round, too. Because I don't think any of the bonus levels in Crash 3 have one, not from memory. I don't remember much about Wrath of Cortex, honestly. I think every game from there on didn't really have any kind of usual level for level basis, at least. Twin Sanity did sort of, but even then they didn't really have bonuses. I need to remember if I liked Twin Sanity or not. Either way, here are the locked crates I was talking about. There are about 4 or 5 of them, but you only see 2 of them at the top. That's because the other 3 are crowded in the darkness, and in order to get them while keeping the firefly with you to see what's going on around you, you need to go ahead into the darkness, spin to find out where they are, and then hope you get them. Oh no, there's 6. Great. I failed here just because I had honestly forgotten how many of them were actually in the dark. So now I'm going blind, and there was a pit right there. Great. And this time I'm actually going the long way around to figure out where they are first. That should be the last of the ones in the darkness. There we go. And now we can get the firefly and continue on. Though that's a bit of a last insult to injury too, because if I recall, the end of the level isn't that far from here. I'm not sure if some of these jumps require the slide jump, but in general, whenever you come to a jump that looks longer, it's just good to slide jump to begin with. Yeah, there's the level right there. It was that close to the end. And that's 44. Nice. And that's the last secret level. However, there's still more secret warps for us to find. And that just goes over to totally fly. So let's head into our next level, Digging It. Which, God, that's 90s lingo I haven't heard much in a while. Digging It has 95 boxes, 26 in its bonus, and 14 in its death route. This stage has a death route, so we need to be a bit careful moving forward for the first third or so of the stage. Notable, though, the seeds that they're throwing out, the explosion counts the little rays of light coming out of it as part of the hitbox, so its hitbox is bigger than you'd initially think. Gold relic time for this stage is 1 minute 48 and 12/100ths of a second, I believe, which I think makes it one of the longer stages in the game, too. Which, you know what, I can honestly see. I have never gotten hit. I have never got hit by those tikis. I don't know how they damage you. I'm not even sure if they have a unique death animation. They probably just stomp on you if I had to guess. I will take that, Aku Aku. But this level is interesting in that it actually has hazards from the chase levels as part of its main gimmick. Which makes me wonder in a way if this is like their attempt at showing you what a chase level plays if you're going forward through it instead of towards the camera. Which, I guess that could be an interesting experiment, but, yeah. Now, something I'm actually trying to remember, and I guess I could technically say this for if I ever did one of the games, is if the GBA Crash games, namely Huge Adventure and Entranced, its sequel, had chase levels. I think it did. And I remember those were surprisingly good Crash games that actually kind of worked in the 2.5. Well, I guess it's more 2D aspect, because 2. I'm not sure. Would that game be considered 2.5D? Because I know at least Crash is I know everything has sprites in it, but no, it's probably just 2D side-scrolling platformer. Oh, that's not good. Thankfully, that death doesn't count as a death because it was in a bonus. If this would crash 1, it probably would count as a death. Actually, I'm not sure if falling in one of the Tana save rooms counts as a death. I don't think it does. It doesn't sound... despite how brutal crash 1 can get, that doesn't sound like something it would do. But I've been wrong before, and I will probably be wrong again. And here's the death route split. The most important thing is getting here without dying. Though, getting through this death route is pretty hard as it is. As is backtracking through it, as we're going to have to do eventually. Because unless you want to go through the death route area twice, in order to get the 2 routes done in the most efficient manner, we need to go forward through this, kill as many enemies as we can along the way as well, and then backtrack through it. And the backtrack is brutal because digging it involves these bees in the hive. Whenever you get into their area of effect, a bee chases you, and if it touches you, kills you. You can spin it away, but that just adds the extra threat of death, and that was a really stupid way to go. But the biggest annoyance about the bees isn't when you're running away from them. It's when you're running towards their hives, when you're backtracking. You have to keep an eye out for the sound, and guess how they are based off, guess their proximity to you, rather, and spin with good timing. That's the best advice I can give with that. Now, one thing I'm trying to remember, I think the fastest way to get through this level is to take the right path. I don't even think death routes are actually activated in Sane Trilogy during the relics trial, so yeah, I guess you would have to take the right, wouldn't you? And something I find interesting, despite being named Diggin' It, this level has no digging in it, at least from memory. Because there is a digging element in this gimmick stage, because this is technically considered more of a bee-themed level than a jungle-themed level, and at this point I'm going to start the backtrack. It takes me about a minute, maybe more. The nitro boxes are probably the most fatal part of it. And something I actually forgot to mention about this level in the bonus round is that I think there's actually some hidden lives off the screen that I've just never been able to find. I've heard about them, and I believe they're there, but I've never seen them. And similar to some other stages I've talked about before, this is actually a level that you can have more boxes than there are total, because there's a way you can die after completing the bonus round before the bonus crates are all added up into your tally. Again, not really worth doing, but it's there. Okay, so you see this red soil ahead of us? This is the digging element. We don't do much of this in this stage. However, when you're underground, you're invincible to more or less any given attack in the game. You can break boxes just by running into them, and you'll collect a Wumpa Fruit as well. There is only one attack that can hurt you underneath the dirt, and that is a certain enemy we're going to be seeing later on in this stage, which looks like the Lab Assistant. In fact, it's just another variation of the Lab Assistant now I think about it, that has a hammer. He'll basically just slam you, he'll slam the ground where you are with the hammer, which kills you. It's pretty blunt, honestly. But it is worth noting that if you ever see a Lab Assistant with a hammer, get out of the ground and then try to dig when he's right next to you, because then the spin you do in midair when you're going into the digging animation counts as an attack, so it's good to use it for your advantage. Alright, almost out of here. I think in the distance you can actually see said Lab Assistant, yep. Though they put him where there's no dirt to dig in, which makes him basically a non-threat. Cool. Oh, that is just unfortunate. Not gonna lie, I laugh when that happens. I actually laugh very often when I die in the Crash games for some reason, especially when they're like, oh, that was just kind of dumb moments kind of deaths, but yeah. Now we have the crystal, and we have both gems. But there's one more thing to do in this level, and it involves dying right here, right now. Because at the previous checkpoint, you may have noticed that there was one of these plant enemies on a little island. That's kind of out of nowhere, isn't it? Why don't you say we slam into it to find the final bonus warp in the game? And this one takes us to a familiar place. We are finally heading back to Road to Ruin to get its box gem through its secret area accessible through here. That's cool, so let's head on in and see what we got. Honestly, out of all of the secret areas for the 6th warp room, this is probably the shortest one. Because all we have for boxes here is this group, which, by the way, do not spin into them nonchalantly. There is a TNT blocker right there, which is actually pretty good for getting rid of them all. And that's most of the boxes we missed. In fact, those are the only boxes you can miss. Because now we're back in the main level, which means it's time for our usual speed up with the Sane Trilogy theme. Revisiting this level isn't too bad. Honestly, the worst part is probably... Actually, no, there's no real bad part about this stage. It's pretty chill throughout, now that I think about it. The hardest part of Road to Ruin is probably the death route. Now, if there's one thing I wish the game... Oh, that was just a dumb death. If there's one thing I think Crash 2 and 3 could have done a bit without, and I think Crash 3 does a bit better with it in the long run, is that I think the bonus elevators didn't need to have the long animation to cut between the areas. In fact, I think Crash 3 just outright, when you get on the bonus platform, it rises out of the screen, then it just cuts to the next area, in most cases at least. I forget. Honestly, it's been a while since I last played Crash 3. Crash 2 is the Crash game I revisit the most. Either way, that's our box gem for this stage. We are now done, I think, entirely with the tier that this level was on. Let me think. We have all the gems. We have all... Yeah, we're basically done with tier 3 now. Tier 4 in what's beyond, or all that's up to 100%.
Crash! I haven't got much time! Cortex has almost completed the new space station! Something is not right with his statements. Beware of the tricksters.
Okay, Coco, I'm just gonna pretend I understood what you were saying. And that you finished the sentence. However, the time has come for this stage. The fan least favorite stage in the game that is made slightly better in N.Gin, I admit to that. But welcome to Cold, Hard Crash. The level that has the most boxes, I think, in the original trilogy, if not the entire series. Actually, wait, no. I think a level in Wrath of Cortex had more. This stage has 155 boxes. 31 of which are in its bonus, and to make matters worse, 23 are in its death route. So not only do we have a lot of boxes to collect, and easily the longest stage in the game, by the way, because most of my raw recordings at cutting out deaths for the stages were like 7-8 minutes usually. This is, I think, with one edit in it, and it was 10 minutes naturally. And I think, oh, actually, no, this is the longest gold relic time in the game. 2 minutes, 6 seconds, 7 hundredths. Admittedly, the speedrun for this stage isn't too hard because you're going along the main path, which isn't too bad at all. But given that this stage really wants you dead, if you can't tell by the amount of hazards around me, it's kind of brutal. There's also quite a few boxes you can very easily miss. A very infamous one is in the bonus. That I can guarantee if you played this game, you missed it on your first playthrough. If you're playing the PlayStation version, at least. More on that in a moment when it becomes visible. The main part of this bonus isn't actually too bad. The only trickery is that one box, which can show up right about now. You see these two Wumpa Fruit crates? Don't break them. Jump on top of them. And yeah, that was totally visible. Most players, when they first play this stage, and they're doing everything correctly, will probably end up with 154 out of 155 boxes purely due to that, which is the worst feeling in the goddamn world. Sane Trilogy made that better by making the camera actually show that box, and I thank it for that, because ugh. And now here's the thing. You might remember how I mentioned that the eel deal was originally going to be at a later point? The eel deal was originally going to be where this stage is, which means this stage was likely going to be where the eel deal was, which is way too early for this stage. Honestly, I probably would have put this in the last tier. But the original plans for tier 2? Ugh. Though notable, this is a level that you can die after the bonus in, while the crates are being totaled up, and be able to exceed the maximum amount of crates. And here's the death route, which means now I can actually breathe a little bit, because I can die, rather. And the death route is almost entirely on ice, which is kind of annoying for the physics of it. But you see how there's box outlines, which means there's an exclamation mark box we need to hit somewhere along the line? Yeah, that's one of the other major issues with this level. We'll get into that in a few moments. The death route itself is deadly, as most death routes are. But honestly, a lot of it is just taking your time while you're on the ice, not using your slide too often, just kind of inching forward, trying to not get smushed by whatever lies above your head. Though, what's about to happen is very upsetting. Oh shit, that shouldn't have broken like that. Why? The top box here has an Aku Aku in it. I can't get that now unless I did a really risky slide spin jump at this point. And I would probably end up careening into the abyss for doing so. So I want to keep my 2 Aku Akus. So I'm just going to ignore it. Most playthroughs, I take that 3rd Aku Aku there and just gun it through the rest of this death route. But I can't do that now due to whatever just happened with that box. Great. Just great. Oh, and more outline boxes. Huh, that's kind of a weird place to put them, isn't it? You're probably figuring out what's happening if you haven't played the game before. No, make matters worse, now a lot of this platforming is going fast near nitro blocks. Great. Off topic though, for some reason nitro blocks, that just reminds me of that Boom Blocks game on the Wii. I played that a lot with my friend James back in the day. It was pretty fun. And here's the biggest annoyance. Exclamation point block that we have to ignore to get the first gem for the death route. Which means now we have to kill ourselves to get back to the checkpoint before the death route and do the entire thing over. Not only to get to the exclamation point block, but also backtrack all the way through it. Not only for this single actual box we saw earlier on that was an outline that we can break, but also because we need to get to the main path in order to get the rest of the boxes. Well, not the rest, most of the rest of the boxes. If I recall correctly, a saving grace that Sane Trilogy did to this stage is that it moved the death route gem to the platform with the exclamation point mark. Exclamation point crate, rather. Meaning you didn't have to take the needless death and do this area forwards again unless you die. However, the fact we need to backtrack this much to begin with is absurd. I think it's the only game in the series that ever got this bad. The only level in the series that ever got this bad from memory. I don't recall one in Crash 3 having something this needlessly backtracky. Again, it's been a while since I played Wrath of Cortex, so there may be one there, but I honestly can't remember. Honestly, I think I remember most about Wrath of Cortex aside from playing it on my brother's Xbox a lot when he was at college, actually, and babysitting me. Was probably, I think it was like some castle level stages. I think I recall the load times being long, but that might be me implanting that memory after hearing about one of the other versions having long load times. I don't know. I'll get to Wrath of Cortex eventually because I do recall having things to say about that game, particularly the mech levels, but I guess I'll figure it out when I get there and after I do some practice runs of it for certain. Now at this point, I am still playing very cautiously because if I die here, I lose the one box, I think still, I got in the death route. So I need to be very careful, but now that's out the window. Mind you, I still want to play carefully, but now I can be a little more reckless. I never got the point of this section, I'll be real. There's 4 exclamation point crates here that we knock into to unlock these 4 boxes when they're not really that well hidden. I never really got that. If they were maybe behind more and you had to play around more in perspective to see them, sure, but a lot of them are very plainly obvious just by looking through the stalactites and stalagmites. Now, one thing I'm trying to remember if it's possible that I try to do here is that, as you can see, there is a standard crate behind those 2 nitro crates. And I think you do need to break that yourself in order to get it, otherwise for some reason the nitro exploder won't explode it or some reason or something like that. I might just be remembering that just out of a cautionary tale or something. And I swear it's possible to get behind those nitro crates without getting hit by them. But if I did it, I haven't done it in a long-ass time. Thankfully, once we get to the outside section for real, when you're going for all the crates, you can calm down because it's a lot more simple from here on. Because as long as you have 132 boxes at this point, you are safe. You have everything you need. The rest of the boxes are in this section. Note those 132 boxes, of course, counts the ones I already broken in this section during the few seconds since we entered it, obviously. I think using the back of your body when you do a belly flop is the only way to break that box in particular, because I've never been able to get fruit out of it. 149, 150, and if you look in the distance, you can see the last 5. We are good. Thank God. Cold Hard Crash, if you're just going through it, getting the crystal, because that's all you care about, it's not that bad. It's hard, but you'd expect difficulty in Tier 4. Going for 100% and getting both gems in this level is annoying. The worst level possibly in the series, honestly. At least from 2 onwards. It is the biggest blemish on this amazing game. I hate this level. I like it more in Sane Trilogy, I admit, but I always fear this level whenever I come back to the game. Thankfully, it's done. I did it first try. Nothing went wrong. I can sigh in relief. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in Part 6, we'll be entering Ruination to see what the rest of Tier 4 has for us. See you guys then.